Every day, they think about reaching out, but ego is a heavy chain, isn't it? It keeps them shackled to their pride, whispering, "Don't call, don't admit you were wrong." And so they sit staring at your name on the screen, rehearsing apologies they'll never send. They type, then delete, type again, delete again, because it's not that they don't care, it's that caring now would mean confessing that you mattered. And to them, admitting that would mean losing the illusion of control. They replay your last words like a punishment. The things they laughed at then, they haunt them now. The silence they thought would make you chase, it turned into a mirror. And in that mirror, they see the emptiness they created. Every day, they wonder if you'd still pick up. They tell themselves you wouldn't. It comforts them to believe that you've changed into someone unreachable, because the truth that you're peaceful without them hurts too much to face. They scroll past your updates like it's nothing, but you can almost feel it, that flicker of envy in their chest, that quiet ache behind the screen. They see you glowing in places they swore you'd never reach. And the applause around you, it's the echo of their mistake. They still talk about you, though they pretend not to. The name slips out in jokes and stories and warnings. Don't end up like them, they say. But what they mean is, don't end up losing someone like them. They think about how simple it would be, just one message, one "Hey, I was wrong." But pride whispers louder than remorse. It says, wait, maybe they'll reach out first, but you won't. And that's what burns. You see, guilt doesn't come with sirens. It's quiet. It visits them at night when the world goes still. It speaks in your absence, in the silence between their thoughts. They scroll, they drink, they distract, but nothing silences a conscience that knows it's too late. They wonder if you ever think about them. You don't, at least not the way they do. You think of lessons, not losses. You remember the version of yourself that existed before they broke it, and you're grateful that version died so the stronger one could live. They regret under their breath, but ego keeps them straight-faced, because admitting regret feels like defeat, and they'd rather drown in silence than swim back through their shame. They call you cold now, detached, unbothered. But the truth is, you just stopped bleeding for people who kept reopening the wound. You learned that not every apology deserves an audience, and not every closure requires a conversation. Every day, they tell themselves they'll reach out tomorrow. But tomorrow never comes, because it's not the right time, or they're too busy, or they think you've moved on. Excuses make great bandages for broken pride. They see your peace and confuse it with arrogance. They see your calm and call it ego. But deep down, they know that's not ego. That's liberation. You freed yourself from a story they tried to write for you. And every time you don't respond, don't look back, don't flinch, their silence grows heavier. Because what haunts them most is that you never needed their apology to heal. You moved on without the closure they thought you'd beg for. Their ego is their punishment now. It keeps them trapped in the same place where they left you. Only difference is, you found the exit. They imagine what they'd say if they saw you again. They'd practice it, the tone, the words, the timing. But none of it will ever come out right. Because guilt makes the tongue heavy. And you've become a lesson too expensive to forget. They think time will soften the guilt. But time doesn't heal arrogance, it just makes it lonelier. One day, the silence will break, but by then, you'll be too far gone, too evolved, too peaceful to even care. And when they finally reach for you, they'll find emptiness. Not bitterness, just absence. Because the person who once would have forgiven them doesn't exist anymore. You buried that version when they taught you what betrayal feels like. They thought you'd wait. You didn't. They thought you'd crumble. You didn't. They thought they could come back whenever it suited them. But they forgot. You don't orbit anyone anymore. You became your own universe. Their apology lives forever unsent, caught between guilt and pride. And that's poetic justice, isn't it? Because now they're haunted by the silence they once celebrated. Every day, they think about reaching out, but they never will. And that's the sweetest revenge of all. You healed, and they're still choking on the words they'll never say. Every day, they think about reaching out. They rehearse their apology in silence, over and over again, crafting the words they'll never say. Their thumb hovers over your name. Their mind battles between guilt and pride always wins. Because admitting fault would mean admitting you mattered, that you left a void they can't refill. So, instead of saying sorry, they let ego choke them in slow motion. They act indifferent in public, but in private, they scroll through memories like addicts, craving the very presence they took for granted. They type, then delete, then type again, then delete again. Because it's not that they don't miss you, it's that missing you exposes the truth they don't want to face. You were never the weak one. They were. They mistook your patience for dependence, your loyalty for naivety. And now that you've walked away, their silence has become a prison cell with their pride as the warden. Every day, they stare at the door, but the key is admitting they were wrong, and that's the one thing they'll never do. You see, guilt doesn't come with noise. It's quiet. It creeps in between thoughts, in the middle of laughter, in the dead calm of the night when their guard is down. They remember your kindness, your effort, your understanding, all the things they once mocked, now haunting them as reminders of what real love felt like. They thought your exit would be temporary. They thought you'd come back like you always did. But this time, you didn't. And that's what terrifies them the most, not your absence, but your indifference. Now they see you at peace, and it burns them alive. You became something they didn't expect, someone untouchable. Your glow annoys them because it proves that their chaos wasn't needed. You moved forward without looking back, and they hate that the world loves the version of you they tried to destroy. They call you heartless now, but what they really mean is you finally stopped bleeding for them. They can't stand seeing you thrive in a story where they don't exist anymore. They still talk about you, though never honestly. They twist the story, rewrite the ending, tell others that you changed, that you became cold. But deep down, they know the truth. You simply grew tired of performing softness for people who mistook it for weakness. You found peace in silence, power in distance, and strength in detachment. And that transformation? That's the revenge they can't swallow. Because now your happiness doesn't include them, and that's the one outcome they never prepared for. Every time they see your name, their heart tightens. Every time someone mentions you, they pretend not to care, but the shift in their eyes betrays them. They wonder if you still think about them, if you'd ever forgive them, if you'd pick up if they called. But the truth is, you wouldn't. Not because of hatred, but because that version of you, the one who tolerated their chaos, no longer exists. You buried that person with every sleepless night they caused. You didn't heal to go backward. You healed to rise. They thought silence would give them power, but now it suffocates them. They thought ignoring you would hurt you, but it only exposed their own weakness. Because while they were busy protecting their pride, you were busy building your peace. You didn't chase closure, you became it. You didn't crave an apology, you evolved beyond needing one. And now, every time they scroll, every time they think of you, every time their chest tightens at the thought of what they lost, they realize something cruel. You won without playing their game. You see, their ego is the punishment now. It keeps them trapped in a loop of what if and maybe someday. They keep waiting for the right moment to reach out, but time has a way of making cowards out of the guilty. The longer they wait, the heavier the silence becomes, and the harder it gets to say what should have been said long ago. They thought they'd always have access to you, but peace doesn't reopen old doors. So they suffer quietly, watching from afar as you become everything they said you couldn't be. They watch your peace stretch across the life they thought you'd never build. They watch your confidence radiate in rooms they swore you'd never walk into. And deep down, they know the reason it hurts so much to see you win is because they were the ones who tried to break you. You know what's funny? They really thought they had you figured out. Every move, every reaction, every thought, they believed they could predict it. They built this little game. See, rules, tricks, lies, and they waited for you to play. But you never did. You didn't rush in to defend yourself. You didn't scramble to prove your worth. You didn't fight for a place at a table that was already rotten. You just smiled, watched, waited. That silence of yours, it drove them insane. They thought they were confusing you, but you were studying them. Every word, every shift in tone, every mask they wore. You didn't need to react, you just observed. And observation, my friend, is a far more powerful weapon than anger. They mistook your calm for ignorance, your distance for defeat. But what they never understood was you had already seen the ending. You knew how it would fall apart. So you did nothing. You simply allowed time to prove you right. And when it did, oh, how the silence screamed. They called you emotionless, but you were just focused. They said you didn't care, but you cared enough to walk away. They tried to provoke you into chaos, but you mastered peace instead, because true intelligence doesn't perform. It predicts. You won without even playing, and that's what's breaking them now. Because how do you defeat someone who never even showed up to the battlefield? How do you outsmart someone who never moved a single piece and still walked away with the victory? You didn't just win, you rewrote what winning meant. See, they were loud, desperate to be seen, desperate to prove. But intelligence doesn't compete for attention, it creates silence. And when the noise faded, all that was left was you, unbothered, untouched, untouchable. Now they whisper your name in confusion. They can't understand how you did it. How did they win without fighting? How did they rise without destroying anyone? They don't realize that sometimes the most dangerous player is the one who folds their arms and lets everyone else expose themselves. They played the short game. You played the long one. They wanted applause. You wanted peace. And now you have both. They're still chasing validation from the same crowd that forgot them last week. You don't chase, you attract. You've built gravity. People orbit you now because you're the one who didn't flinch. They hate that. They hate that their chaos didn't move you, that your intelligence made their schemes look childish, that while they were plotting in circles, you were 3 steps above, untouched, watching them drown in their own noise. That's the cruel beauty of it, isn't it? You didn't destroy them, their own actions did. You didn't need to prove your worth, they proved your point. And that realization, it eats at them every night, because they know deep down they lost to someone who didn't even bother to play. Now, your silence echoes louder than their explanations. Your peace terrifies them more than your anger ever could, because anger they can fight, but calm? Calm means control. You became the mirror they can't stand to look into. Because when they see you, they see what discipline looks like. They see what strength without noise feels like. They see the kind of intelligence they can't fake. And that's why your name lingers in rooms you've never entered. They mention you like a ghost story, half respect, half regret. Because in the end, they realize they weren't competing with you. They were competing with the version of themselves that could never be you. You didn't win by fighting. You won by walking away with dignity, silence, and that unnerving smile. So now, every time your name is mentioned, they freeze for a second. Because they remember, you won the game without even playing it. And that's what makes you dangerous. They thought you were naive, easy to read, easy to break, easy to predict. They were busy laughing while you were observing. They thought your silence was submission, not strategy. But see, that's the thing about people who underestimate intelligence. They confuse stillness for weakness, and by the time they realize it's calculation, it's already too late. You didn't play their game. You studied it. You watched how they moved, how they lied, how they plotted. You let them think they were winning. You gave them a sense of control, the illusion of power. And then you did nothing. You let time play your hand. And somehow, you ended up winning without even touching the board. That's not luck. That's brilliance wrapped in patience. They were so desperate to see you lose that they didn't notice you'd already walked away from the battlefield. They kept fighting shadows, arguing with ghosts, competing with a version of you that no longer existed. And when the dust settled, there you were, calm, composed, untouchable, while they were standing in the ruins of their own plans. Now they whisper about you. They talk about how you played it smart, how you saw it all coming. They're shocked because they thought intelligence looked like noise, arrogance, control. But yours was quiet, surgical. You didn't fight to win, you simply allowed the truth to unfold, and it did the work for you. They called you slow, but you were precise. They called you cold, but you were focused. They called you detached, but you were calculating distance. And when the moment came, when every mask fell and every truth bled through, you didn't even need to lift a finger. You'd already won. They're still trying to figure out how you managed to come out ahead when they were the ones scheming, how you gained everything without playing their little mind games. They don't realize you don't win by outplaying people. You win by refusing to enter their arena. You don't chase attention, you build gravity. You make the world come to you. And that's what scares them most. You never fought back, never retaliated, never exposed them. You just let them reveal themselves. You made their own actions your evidence, their own jealousy your victory. They tried to make you look foolish, and in the process, they showed everyone their true colors. You didn't just win, you let them lose themselves. They can't handle the fact that intelligence doesn't need an audience. It doesn't shout. It observes, remembers, and moves in silence. You played no cards and still took the jackpot. You spoke no lies and still exposed the truth. You moved no pawns and still checkmated the kings. That's why they stare now, half in disbelief, half in regret. You're not the hero of their story. You're the twist they didn't see coming. They thought they were the main characters, but you turned the whole plot into your playground. You rewrote the ending by doing nothing at all. That's not manipulation. That's mastery. And now when your name comes up, it's not in mockery anymore, it's in awe. How did they do it? They ask. How did they pull that off? They don't realize that the real power wasn't in your words or your moves, it was in your restraint. You didn't react when they provoked you. You didn't defend yourself when they lied. You let silence prove your intelligence. Because that's what the truly powerful understand. You don't need to fight for what's already yours. You just need to stay patient long enough for the truth to surface. And when it does, it hits like thunder. You don't need to raise your voice when the facts are loud enough. They're confused now. They thought intelligence meant playing the system. You showed them that real intelligence means understanding the system and choosing when to walk away. You outsmarted them not by being cleverer, but by being calmer. You didn't fight the storm. You became the eye of it. Now they're the ones restless, second-guessing every memory, every conversation. They replay everything you said, everything you didn't. They realize too late your silence wasn't absence. It was strategy. Every time they spoke, you learned. Every time you stayed quiet, you built leverage. Every time they thought they had control, you let them dig deeper into their own downfall. And when the ending arrived, there was no dramatic reveal, no explosion, just realization, just silence, just the haunting awareness that you had already won. You had built your peace while they built their chaos. And now, standing in the wreckage, they look up to you with a mix of envy and awe because they see what they could never be. They lost the game because they never understood the rules. You created your own. You didn't win by outsmarting them. You won by outgrowing them. You turned every insult into information, every betrayal into a blueprint. And when they tried to trap you in their narrative, you wrote your own ending clean, cold, victorious. Now they can't even speak your name without acknowledging your intelligence. You became the reference point, the measure of wisdom, the proof that silence isn't weakness, it's precision. They study your moves like analysts, trying to find where they went wrong. But the truth is, the game ended the moment you stopped playing. Because that's the secret no one tells them. The most intelligent ones don't win by fighting. They win by letting others destroy themselves. They win by doing less, thinking more, waiting longer. And you mastered that art beautifully. They thought they were manipulating you. But all along you were just watching the pieces fall into place. And when the dust settled, they realized the truth they had been playing against themselves. You were already gone. And that right there is the kind of victory they'll never understand, the kind that requires no fight, no noise, no validation, just silence and brilliance. They never thought your silence would echo this long. They thought you'd eventually return, like you always did, forgiving, understanding, soft. But this time, you didn't. You left and stayed gone. And that decision, it shook their entire perception of who you were. Because the one thing they counted on your return never came. You became the lesson they didn't know they were learning. Now, they speak of you not with arrogance, but with awe. You became the name they whisper when they talk about strength they couldn't match. They're impressed, though they'd never admit it aloud. Impressed that you never looked back. Impressed that you never broke the silence. They used to think you couldn't live without them. Now, they can't understand how you do it so effortlessly. They tell others you were different, rare, built different. But what they really mean is you were the one who had the courage to let go first. They watch from a distance, wondering how you managed to rebuild what they destroyed, wondering how someone they underestimated became the standard everyone now chases. They take your name as a golden standard now. Be like them, they say. They never went back. You became the story people tell when they talk about self-respect, about discipline, about power wrapped in silence. The same ones who mocked your boundaries now use your name to define strength. The same ones who called you dramatic now admire your distance. That's the beauty of evolution. It turns your pain into prestige. It makes your name echo in conversations you're not even a part of. They measure loyalty by how much it costs to lose you, and for them, the cost was everything. You taught them that no one is irreplaceable, but some losses never heal. You didn't slam the door, you just never walked back through it. You didn't scream for attention, you taught them. The sharpest revenge is composure. And now, they live with the knowledge that they'll never find that same energy again. Because people like you don't return, they rebuild elsewhere. You became myth, a name they dropped to prove they once had something rare. They romanticize the story now. We used to talk, we were close once, they were special. But the way they speak gives them away. There's nostalgia, yes, but underneath it, there's guilt. Because everyone knows, if you lose someone who never comes back, it's because they outgrew your chaos. And that realization will haunt them longer than any goodbye. They admire the discipline you found in detachment. You made walking away look elegant, like it was planned all along. You didn't make noise. You didn't seek validation. You didn't try to prove your worth. You just left. And that silence became sacred, because the world respects restraint, even if they don't understand it. You didn't have to destroy them, your absence did it for you. They still feel your presence in the emptiness you left behind. They'll never admit how many times they almost reached out, how many times they hovered over your name, waiting for the courage to break their pride. But the truth is, They can't. Because reaching out now would mean acknowledging you've become something greater, untouchable, unbothered, unshaken. You've become everything they said you couldn't be, and nothing they ever deserved. And deep down, they know if they called, you wouldn't answer. Not out of hatred, but because peace doesn't entertain the past. Now they hold your name like a warning. Don't mess up with someone like them, they say. They don't come back. You became the symbol of consequence. The quiet proof that people who give deeply can also walk away completely. They tell others your story like a myth, half in admiration, half in regret. And every time they do, it reminds them of the moment you walked away, calm, final, unforgettable. Your distance became your legacy. You didn't just leave them behind, you left an impression too heavy to erase. Your detachment became power. Your silence became gold. And your name, the one they once dismissed, became the standard for strength. Because in a world obsessed with reaction, you mastered the art of restraint. You became the quiet storm they'll never recover from. They still think about how you did it, how you managed to stay away, how you never once looked back. It haunts them that someone could care that deeply, then detach that completely. But that's the part they'll never understand. When someone pure decides they've had enough, their absence carries more weight than their presence ever did. You didn't just walk away, you ascended. And now, they can only look up. So yes, they're impressed. They may not say it, but they feel it every time your name surfaces. They speak it with reverence, with guilt, with something that sounds almost like respect. You became the one who proved that walking away is not weakness, it's self-mastery. And that kind of control, that's what makes your name golden. They didn't believe you'd ever walk away. They thought you'd always bend, always return, always forgive. You had made forgiveness look too easy, and they mistook that mercy for weakness. But then one day, you stopped. No announcement, no grand speech, just silence. And that silence, it hit harder than any explosion ever could, because it wasn't filled with anger, it was filled with finality. They waited. Days, weeks, months. They thought you'd cave, that guilt or nostalgia would bring you back. But time passed, and nothing came. The same silence they weaponized against you now became their prison. Every second without your voice, your presence, your energy, it became a countdown they couldn't stop hearing. You didn't vanish. You evolved. And they stayed behind, trapped in the echo of their own arrogance. Now they think of you constantly, though they'd never admit it. Every time they see something that reminds them of you, they feel that sting, that tightness in the chest that whispers, you ruined something real. They tell themselves they don't care, that they've moved on, but their body betrays them. The mind forgets, the soul doesn't, and your name has become a pulse inside their guilt. They speak of you now with respect they never gave you when they had you. They call you disciplined, cold, admirable. They say they don't go back, with a strange mix of awe and fear. Because the same people who thought you'd always be available now use your name as a warning, a golden standard for self-control. You became a myth to them, the one who mastered detachment, who walked away and never looked over their shoulder. Your distance is their punishment, your restraint their reminder. They talk about you like a ghost. They can't exorcise half nostalgia, half admiration. They never went back, they say, shaking their heads like it's something sacred. You taught them that walking away isn't about hate, it's about self-respect. You proved that silence can be power, that peace can be lethal, that indifference can humble the proud. They still don't understand how you did it, how you stopped missing them, how you stopped caring, how you stopped reaching out. But that's the thing, you didn't stop out of spite. You stopped out of growth. There comes a point when someone realizes they can't keep pouring love into hands that only know how to take. And when that realization hits, it changes everything. You learned that peace is louder than revenge. Their admiration now tastes like regret. You live rent-free in their mind, not as a memory, but as a measurement. Every new person they meet is compared to you. Every argument, every affection, every silence, it all circles back to you. Because your absence created a benchmark for what they lost, and deep down, they know they'll never find it again. You became the example their friends bring up in conversations. Remember them? Someone says. They never went back. The tone changes, softer, more reverent. It's no longer gossip, it's legend. You turned pain into power, and now your story carries weight. Your name has become an adjective for strength, a synonym for standards. They try to imitate your calm now, the same calm they once called cold. They try to mirror your silence, your boundaries, your detachment, but it never fits them. Because theirs comes from fear, yours came from mastery. They isolate themselves to look powerful. You isolate yourself to stay peaceful. There's a difference, and the world can feel it. Everywhere they go, they see reflections of what they lost. They scroll through social media and see pieces of your energy, the way you smile now, the quiet confidence in your presence. It unsettles them, because you were supposed to break. But instead, you built yourself into something untouchable. You became what they said you couldn't be, and that contradiction destroys them. They wronged you because they thought you would never fight back. They mistook your silence for submission, your patience for weakness. They believed kindness meant you were harmless. And for the longest time, you let them believe it because you knew that the loudest storms begin in still air. They broke your boundaries and then called you distant when you rebuilt them. They took your empathy, drained it, and left you questioning your worth. They smiled while you burned yourself out trying to keep them warm. And when you finally stopped, they called you cold. That's the irony of givers when they finally take their power back. The world calls it cruelty. They wanted your forgiveness, not your freedom. They wanted you tethered, predictable, controlled. But when you began to heal, they panicked. Healing meant they could no longer use your pain as leverage. And so they began to whisper, "You've changed." No, you just stopped bleeding for people who sharpen the knife. They will tell others that you became a villain. Let them, because they can't stand the story where you win. They built their identity around your obedience, and your rebellion exposes their fragility. They don't hate you for being different now. They hate you for surviving without them. They will call your silence arrogance, your peace hostility. That's what guilty people do. They rename your boundaries to justify their discomfort. But your calm is not an act of vengeance, it's an act of evolution. You've outgrown the chaos they called connection. They will flinch when you no longer answer their messages, when your smile no longer bends in their direction. That's when they'll realize the truth. They never broke you, they only broke access to you. And that is the version of you they never wanted to meet, the version that no longer entertains the unworthy. You used to chase explanations. Now you let confusion be their punishment. You used to beg to be understood. Now you understand yourself too deeply to care. And that shift, that quiet, unshakable clarity will terrify them more than anger ever could. They will whisper that you're dangerous. And in a way you are. Not because you harm, but because you've mastered restraint. Because you can stand in front of everything that once destroyed you and feel nothing but composure. That kind of strength is unpredictable, and unpredictability is what terrifies the manipulators. They will try to provoke the old version of you, the one who explained, forgave, returned. But that version is gone. You buried them with every sleepless night they caused, every lie they told, every apology that came too late. What stands in their place now is not bitterness, it's precision. You move differently when you've learned the cost of caring too freely. And soon, they will see it. The side of you they never wished to awaken, the one who doesn't react, doesn't chase, doesn't need to prove anything. The one who learned that peace can be sharp, that silence can scream louder than rage. They will learn that you were never their victim, you were their lesson. They wronged you, and they did it with confidence. They thought you'd stay quiet, predictable, small. They thought their betrayal would break you just enough to keep you obedient. But pain has a strange way of reprogramming people. It teaches them who never to trust again. They took advantage of your heart because it was open, not because it was weak. You cared out loud in a world that mistakes empathy for invitation. They fed on that kindness until there was nothing left but questions and silence. Then they blamed you for the quiet they caused. They believed they could guilt you into staying. That's how control works. It thrives on your loyalty. They used your decency as a leash. But when you finally cut it, they were stunned. Because the one thing manipulators never prepare for is someone who stops caring. They called your detachment cruel. But it wasn't cruelty, it was clarity. You finally saw what they were. You stopped trying to fix what was never broken in you, only in them. That's when you became dangerous. Because peace, after chaos, is the loudest form of power. They whisper now. They say you changed. And they're right, you did. You grew sharper, colder, quieter. You started speaking in actions instead of explanations. You learned that walking away doesn't make you heartless, it makes you wise. They used to look down on you. Now they look for you. The same people who dismissed your worth now replay your absence like a song they can't stop hearing. Because your absence became their consequence. They wronged you, thinking you'd stay broken. But you rebuilt yourself in silence. Every scar became a blueprint. Every betrayal, a calculation. You learned the kind of strength that doesn't need an audience. You learned that peace without revenge is the purest kind of dominance. They thought they were teaching you a lesson. They were just not the one they intended. They taught you that love without respect is manipulation, that apologies without change are theater, that sometimes walking away is the only way to win. Now you move differently. You speak less. You see more. You observe without absorbing. You've stopped explaining your worth to people allergic to accountability, and that composure, it unnerves them, because you've become everything they swore you'd never be. Untouchable. They ask around about you now. They frame their curiosity as concern, but it's envy disguised as care. They want to know how you got so calm, how you learned to smile without them. The truth? You stopped negotiating your peace for temporary people. They hate that your silence doesn't chase. They hate that you don't correct their lies. They hate that you stopped participating in your own exploitation. You used to give them power every time you tried to prove your innocence. Now, your indifference is the verdict. They'll tell others you became cold, but you didn't. You became calculated. Because warmth without boundaries isn't love, it's self-destruction. You learn to protect your energy like currency. You spend it only where it multiplies. They will feel it soon, the absence of your understanding, your comfort, your presence. They'll realize you weren't replaceable. You were the foundation they mistook for decoration. They'll try to rebuild with lesser souls, and every copy will collapse under comparison. They will finally see what they created. The calm after betrayal is not peace, it's evolution. You evolve beyond the reach of their chaos. You learn to let karma take your place in the conversation. You no longer seek closure. You watch it arrive. You used to explain yourself. Now you observe who deserves an explanation at all. You used to take it personally when people changed. Now you understand some people never were who they pretended to be. Their masks just slipped when you stopped serving their narrative. They wronged you thinking they'd forget you, but you left fingerprints on their conscience. They see your face in their guilt, hear your name in every quiet moment they try to fill with noise. They can't escape what they created. You became the echo of their own actions. They tried to shame you for healing differently, But healing doesn't look holy. Sometimes it looks cold. Sometimes it looks like deleting messages, like saying no, like disappearing without goodbye. Healing looks like reclaiming the power you once handed over freely. They don't realize you stopped fighting them because you already won. You won when you stopped needing their validation. You won when you stopped proving your worth to people who were committed to misunderstanding you. You won when you chose distance over drama. They'll say you moved on too easily. But moving on wasn't easy, it was necessary. You outgrew the conversation, the tension, the guilt. You outgrew people who can't meet you where peace lives. And now they'll call that growth arrogance, because they can't admit they stayed small. They will see your success and pretend to be happy for you. But envy is a quiet disease. It hides behind claps that sound hollow. They'll celebrate your wins in public, but privately they'll ask, how did they do it? The answer is simple: you healed in silence. They used to drain you. Now they study you. They analyze your calm like a crime scene, looking for evidence of revenge. But there isn't any. You didn't get revenge, you got better. And nothing tortures a guilty soul more than watching the one they broke stay unbothered. They'll talk about you like you're a warning, not a memory. Don't cross them, they'll say. But the truth is, you never became dangerous. They just learned the cost of mistaking your kindness for permission. You simply stopped giving discounts on your worth. They will keep pretending they're fine. But every time your name surfaces, so will their discomfort. That's what happens when people realize the villain they created refuses to play the role they wrote. You stop performing. They're still acting.
Look at you, still breathing, still standing, after everything they did to make sure you wouldn't. That's how you know something holy is happening in a place they tried to turn into a grave. You thought God disappeared when the hits kept coming, when the betrayals stacked, when the silence got loud enough to scream back at you. But here's the part they never understand. God doesn't rush rescues. God stages rebuilds, public ones, surgical ones, the kind that don't just heal you. They reframe the entire story in front of the same faces that laughed when you fell. They wanted you broken quietly. They wanted you to disappear politely. They wanted you ashamed, small, grateful for scraps. And God just watched. Not because he agreed with them, but because pressure reveals architecture. Because destruction exposes what can't be destroyed. You didn't notice it at first. The way your pain started sharpening instead of weakening you. The way your losses began stripping illusions instead of hope. You thought you were decaying. You were actually being reduced to something unkillable. That's the paradox. That's the trick. They thought God was turning away from you. God was isolating you for reconstruction. You see, when God rebuilds, he doesn't restore the old version. He doesn't give you back who you were before the damage. That version was too visible, too readable, too easy to target. So he let them tear it down, piece by piece. Reputation, relationships, certainty, comfort, identity. And while they were celebrating your collapse, God was studying your core. Not the smile you wore, not the mask that you used to survive. The part of you that kept choosing breath when quitting would have been easier. That's the material he works with. Now look at the irony. The same people who tried to break you are still watching, still whispering, still pretending they don't care, while tracking every move you make. They expected ruins. Instead, they're seeing structure, discipline, silence with weight, eyes that don't flinch anymore. They can feel it before they can explain it. You're not angry the same way. You're not loud the same way. You're not afraid the same way. Because God didn't rebuild your circumstances first. He rebuilt your nervous system. He rewired how you interpret threat. He taught your soul how to stand in fire without needing to scream. That's why you scare them now. You walk like someone who's already died and came back with nothing left to lose. You speak like someone who no longer needs permission to exist. You listen like someone who hears what's not being said, and that's terrifying to people who survive on deception. They don't know whether to apologize, attack, or pretend you were never important. That confusion, that's divine timing. God rebuilds in phases. First, He removes your need to be understood. Then He removes your fear of being misunderstood. That's when power settles in, quiet, dense, unignorable. You're not becoming kinder, you're becoming clearer. You're not becoming colder, you're becoming precise. You're not becoming ruthless, you're becoming aligned. And alignment looks like danger to people who benefited from your chaos. Here's the part nobody warns them about. When God rebuilds you in front of your enemies, He doesn't ask you to prove anything. He lets contrast do the talking. He lets your calm expose their panic, your focus expose their obsession, your growth expose their stagnation. They remember the version of you that begged, explained, overgave. They keep trying to interact with that ghost. But you're not there anymore. That person was sacrificed so something sharper could take their place. You're the saint who learned to bite, the angel who understands hell's layout, the psychopath they created by pushing a loyal soul too far. And God didn't stop it. Because some people don't learn through sermons. They learn through consequences they can't reverse. So now the rebuild is visible, not flashy, not loud, but undeniable. You don't chase, you don't correct, you don't chase closure. You move forward, and that forward motion feels like judgment to people stuck in the past version of you. They thought they buried you. God used the pressure to turn you into bedrock. And the wildest part, you're just getting started, because once God shows you what survives the breaking, you stop fearing loss. You stop negotiating with disrespect. You stop shrinking for rooms that can't hold your future. They'll say you changed. They'll say you're different. They'll say you're not who you used to be. Good. That's the point. This isn't revenge. This is resurrection with witnesses. They're watching closer now. Not openly, never openly, but with that tight, quiet attention people get when something they counted out starts moving again. When a story they already closed begins writing new chapters without asking permission. You can feel it, the shift. The way rooms go silent a second longer than they should when you enter. The way conversations change tone. The way certain people suddenly remember your name, your value, your potential, like they didn't help try to bury it. That's not coincidence. That's recognition kicking in late. God rebuilds you slowly on purpose, because a fast comeback looks like luck. A slow resurrection looks like inevitability. It forces them to sit with it, to replay every decision, every betrayal, every moment they chose convenience over loyalty and power over decency. They don't just see you rising, they see themselves reflected in the wreckage of who they were when they tried to end you. And here's where the real psychological twist happens. God doesn't rebuild you to confront them. He rebuilds you to outgrow them, to make their presence irrelevant, to turn what they did into background noise instead of a defining chapter. That's why your energy feels different now. You're not rushing to prove. You're not over-explaining. You're not seeking validation from rooms that once applauded your pain. You're selective, surgical, calm in ways that make unstable people nervous. Because chaos can't read stillness. They want a reaction, a victory lap, a meltdown, anything they can label and reduce. But all they're getting is composure. And composure is terrifying to people who rely on emotional leverage. You used to flinch. You used to doubt. You used to second-guess every instinct. Now, you pause, you observe, you decide. That's the rebuild stage where God replaces your emotional reflexes with discernment, where He teaches you the difference between mercy and self-betrayal, where forgiveness stops meaning access, and suddenly your silence speaks louder than your explanations ever did. They remember how easy it was to manipulate you when you wanted to be understood, when you still believed effort guaranteed fairness, when you thought loyalty would be returned just because it was given honestly. That version of you doesn't exist anymore. God burned it down Himself. Because that version was powerful, but vulnerable, capable, but exposed, too open in a world that feeds on weakness disguised as kindness. So now He's rebuilding you with boundaries instead of blind trust, with standards instead of hope, with self-respect sharp enough to cut through fake apologies and delayed recognition. That's why their guilt feels heavier now. That's why their excuses sound hollow even to themselves. They can sense that the window closed, that access expired, that the version of you they could take advantage of is gone forever. And nothing unsettles people more than realizing they missed their chance to be decent. You're no longer seeking fairness. You're seeking alignment. You don't need revenge. Time is handling that for you. Every day you move forward without bitterness is another reminder that their influence has limits. They wanted you bitter. They got you better. They wanted you broken. They got you rebuilt. And not rebuilt into something soft or fragile, but into something exact. Something measured. Something that knows when to walk away without burning bridges, and when to let silence do the damage. God doesn't rebuild you to make you safe. He rebuilds you to make you unshakable. So when they see you now, focused, grounded, unbothered, they feel exposed, because your presence reminds them of the version of themselves they abandoned, the integrity they compromised, the lines they crossed and can't uncross. You don't even have to speak. Your existence is the indictment. And the longer you stand there, calm, composed, evolving, the clearer it becomes. What didn't destroy you didn't just fail. It trained you, hardened you, educated you in ways comfort never could. That's why your confidence feels different now. It's not loud. It's not performative. It doesn't ask to be believed. It assumes. And assumption is power. Because you've seen the worst of people and survived without becoming them. You've walked through darkness without letting it hollow you out. You've felt abandonment without letting it turn you small. That's divine craftsmanship. They can't undo what God rebuilt. They can't reach you the way they used to. They can't threaten what no longer needs their approval to exist. So let them watch. Let them wonder. Let them replay the moment they thought they won. Because every step you take forward now is proof that the story didn't end where they tried to break you. It restarted, stronger, sharper, and fully aware of its own power. And the strangest part, you're calm about it, not numb, not detached. Calm in the way people get when they finally understand the pattern, when they stop asking why and start seeing how the pain wasn't random, how the timing wasn't cruel, how every delay, every loss, every moment you thought God forgot your name was actually part of a filtration process. Because not everyone deserves front row seats to the rebuild. God doesn't restore you in isolation just to protect you. He restores you in visibility to teach, to remind everyone watching that destruction doesn't mean defeat, that silence doesn't mean absence, that being pushed to the edge doesn't mean you fall off. Sometimes it means you learn how to stand where others can't. They tried to rush your ending. God slowed your becoming. That's why you move differently now. You don't hurry. You don't chase outcomes. You don't argue with people committed to misunderstanding you. You let them keep their version of the story because you finally understand something they don't. The story only matters to people who are still stuck in it. You're building forward, and forward-building energy feels threatening to people who live off control. They see it in your posture, in the way you no longer lean in the way you don't overreact when they test the old buttons. They press, nothing happens. They escalate, still nothing. And that's when panic sets in. Not loud panic, but that quiet internal scrambling that comes from realizing the leverage is gone. You're not responding because you don't need to. That's not arrogance. That's sovereignty. God didn't rebuild you to be impressive. He rebuilt you to be self-contained, to be the kind of person who doesn't fracture when approval is removed, who doesn't collapse when validation disappears, who doesn't chase reassurance when the room goes cold. You learned how to generate your own stability, and that terrifies people who survive by borrowing power from others. They remember the version of you that apologized too quickly, that explained too much, that stayed longer than necessary, that kept giving chances, hoping something would finally change. God dismantled that habit. Now you're selective. You observe patterns. You let behavior speak. You trust consistency over words. And you don't confuse familiarity with safety anymore. That's the rebuild no one sees coming. Because from the outside, it just looks like confidence. But inside, it's something deeper. It's discernment forged under pressure. It's emotional muscle memory trained by disappointment. It's clarity earned through loss. You don't romanticize struggle anymore. You respect it for what it taught you. And then you move on. They don't know how to interact with this version of you. You're not hostile enough to attack, not needy enough to manipulate, not insecure enough to control. You exist in a space they can't reach without changing themselves. And that's not a journey they're willing to take. So they watch, they whisper, they rationalize, they tell themselves you got lucky, that someone helped you, that it won't last, that you'll crack eventually. They need to believe that, because the alternative, that God rebuilt you because of what they did, means they were never as powerful as they thought. It means their cruelty backfired. It means the very pressure they applied became the catalyst for your elevation. And that realization is unbearable for people who built their identity on dominance. You don't gloat. You don't announce victory. You let time reveal alignment. You let consistency speak. You let your life become the evidence. That's divine restraint. God rebuilds you with patience because patience is the language of inevitability. You're not rushing the outcome because you already know how the story ends. Not in fantasy, in reality, in momentum, in the quiet accumulation of discipline, clarity, and self-respect. You're no longer chasing better days. You're building a better baseline. And once that happens, nothing external has the same power over you again. They can't destabilize you with rejection. They can't bait you with praise. They can't threaten you with absence. Because you survived abandonment and learned that solitude doesn't mean emptiness. Sometimes it means freedom. God didn't rebuild you to make you harmless. He rebuilt you to make you precise, to know when to show compassion and when to withdraw access, to recognize the difference between someone who made a mistake and someone who revealed their character. You don't carry resentment, you carry memory. And memory is a tool. That's why you don't repeat lessons anymore. They thought the breaking would humble you into submission. Instead, It clarified you into strength. It stripped away your tolerance for nonsense. It burned off your need to be liked. It left behind something lean, aware, and internally anchored, something that doesn't beg. So let them see you rebuilt. Let them notice the calm. Let them feel the distance. Let them wonder when exactly they lost control of the narrative. Because the truth is, they didn't lose it when you rose. They lost it the moment God decided you were worth rebuilding instead of replacing. And from that moment on, the outcome was never in their hands again. And there's a moment, quiet, almost unnoticeable, when you realize something irreversible has happened inside you. It's the moment you stop fantasizing about being seen and start feeling anchored. The moment you no longer rehearse conversations that will never happen. The moment you understand that closure is a luxury for people who didn't have to rebuild themselves from psychological rubble. You don't need their acknowledgement anymore. And that's when the power fully locks in. Because God doesn't rebuild you to win arguments. He rebuilds you to end cycles, to step out of dynamics that fed on your confusion, your hope, your empathy, to recognize when love was being weaponized against you, to see clearly how your goodness was mistaken for weakness by people who never intended to protect it. You were never naive. You were faithful in a faithless environment. God didn't punish that. He refined it. That's why the rebuild hurts in strange ways. It's not just grief for what you lost. It's grief for what you tolerated, for how long you stayed, for how much you gave people who were never capable of holding it. But guilt doesn't live here anymore. Only understanding, and understanding changes how you move. You don't announce boundaries. You embody them. You don't explain your absence. You let the silence educate. You don't try to clear the air with people who poisoned it in the first place. You conserve energy now. That's a sign of maturity forged by pain. They keep expecting a reaction because that's how they measured power before. How much noise they could pull out of you. How much emotion they could extract. How deeply they could disturb your equilibrium. But your equilibrium is no longer external. God rebuilt you inward first. So when they attempt to provoke, it lands nowhere. When they attempt to guilt you, it collapses. When they attempt to remind you of the past, it feels like watching an old movie you already analyzed and archived. You remember. You just don't relive. That distinction is lethal to people who survive by reopening wounds. And here's the divine irony. The more stable you become, the more unstable they feel. Not because you're doing anything to them, but because your peace highlights their unrest. Your clarity exposes their avoidance. Your discipline reflects their chaos. You didn't become better than them. You became free from them. God rebuilt you with a different relationship to time. You're no longer desperate for immediacy. You understand compounding growth. You understand that real power doesn't rush because it doesn't fear interruption. You're patient now. Not passively patient, but strategically patient. Patient enough to wait without waiting on anyone. Patient enough to let people reveal themselves fully instead of interrupting the process. And that patience reads as dominance to insecure minds. They thought you'd come back angry, bitter, reactive. They prepared defenses for that version of you. Scripts, labels, smears. But you came back centered, grounded, intact. They don't know how to fight that, because you're not fighting anymore. You're building. And building energy doesn't announce itself. It shows up consistently, quietly, relentlessly. It stacks days. It compounds habits. It sharpens instincts. It aligns actions with values until identity becomes unshakable. You don't need to remind anyone who you are. Your presence does it. God rebuilt you with discernment that sees through urgency, through fake remorse, through last-minute apologies that only appear once consequences arrive. You don't confuse regret with accountability anymore. You can hear when someone misses access, not you. And you don't reopen doors just because someone knocks louder. That's wisdom purchased with suffering. You used to fear becoming cold, but you didn't. You became contained, warm where it matters, closed where it's earned, soft without being porous, strong without being cruel. Balanced. That balance came at a price most people never pay, and never want to. So when they look at you now, there's a tension they can't resolve. They want to believe they still know you. But you don't respond the same. You don't tolerate the same. You don't shrink the same. You're familiar, but unreachable. That's when they realize the rebuild wasn't cosmetic. It wasn't a phase. It wasn't motivational noise. It was structural. God reinforced the parts of you that cracked under pressure. He replaced emotional habits that kept you stuck. He recalibrated your standards so you no longer negotiate with disrespect or confusion. You're not hardened, you're clarified. And clarity is dangerous to people who benefited from your fog. You don't hate them, you don't wish harm. You simply don't revolve around them anymore. Your axis shifted inward, and from there, upward. That's the kind of rebuild that doesn't ask for applause. It just keeps standing. So let them watch the outcome they helped create without meaning to. Let them sit with the discomfort of seeing you whole. Shh. Slow down before you breathe, before you blink, before you scroll, because the room just changed the moment your name hit that list. You felt it, didn't you? That subtle pause in the air, that half second where the world hesitated like it misread the script. That wasn't paranoia, that was confirmation. Somewhere far above the noise, far from the comments and the crowds, a man who cleans up billion-dollar messes looked at your file and didn't touch it. Not because he couldn't, because he wouldn't. Because some things aren't meant to be erased. They're meant to be contained. And you're not contained. You're marked. They didn't announce it. They didn't warn anyone. That's not how real power moves. Real power whispers into locked rooms and watches who starts sweating. Real power doesn't attack. It labels. And the label they gave you wasn't problem. It wasn't enemy. It was worse. It was unspoken. It was the kind of word that makes professionals lean back in their chair and stare at the ceiling, like they just remembered something they were supposed to forget. Untouchable. Do you understand what that does to a system? Systems are built to crush, correct, absorb, or delete. They're not built for anomalies that don't obey those outcomes. They're not built for people who survive pressure without hardening, who adapt without showing the seams, who look harmless until the moment they aren't. You don't break the machine by attacking it. You break it by existing outside its logic. That's what scares them, not your strength, your unpredictability. You see, they know how to deal with villains. They know how to deal with heroes. Saints get paraded. Psychopaths get hunted. But you move between those masks like they're optional. One moment you're silent, restrained, almost gentle. The next, you're dismantling assumptions without raising your voice. That's not chaos. That's control disguised as calm. That's evolution through restraint. That's the kind of duality that makes analysts nervous, because it can't be graphed. They studied you expecting a pattern. Trauma makes people predictable. Pain usually sharpens one edge and dulls the rest. But you did something wrong. You learned. You metabolized it. You didn't turn bitter. You turned precise. And that's when the alarms went quiet. Not loud, quiet. Because the scariest signals don't scream, they flatline. Somewhere in a glass office, someone said your name softly. Not with fear, with caution, like a surgeon before a risky incision. And the cleanup guy, the one who erases reputations, reroutes narratives, and buries inconvenient truths, he didn't reach for the tools. He closed the folder. That's not mercy. That's recognition. He saw something that doesn't react well to pressure, something that reflects it back, something that survives exposure. Now watch what happens next. People around you start acting off. Smiles linger too long. Conversations end too quickly. Invitations stop coming, but the attention doesn't. It just changes shape. They don't want proximity anymore. They want distance with visibility. They want to keep you in sight without provoking you. That's not respect. That's strategic anxiety. Because once you've been flagged, no one wants to be the one who poked the anomaly and found out why it was flagged in the first place. You think this is about wealth, power, status? No, this is about consequence. Billionaires aren't afraid of loud threats. They're afraid of quiet variables. They're afraid of people who don't need permission, who don't chase validation, who don't collapse when ignored. You don't beg the spotlight. You let it find you when it's ready. That patience, that terrifies them, because patience means you're not reactive. And non-reactive entities don't play by emotional leverage. You became dangerous the moment pain stopped owning you. The moment betrayal didn't turn you reckless. The moment isolation didn't make you loud. You went inward. You sharpened. You learned how to sit in silence without leaking intention. That's when the system lost you. Not when you fought back, but when you stopped needing to. They can't predict you because you're not trying to win their game. You're not even playing it. You're building something parallel, something invisible until it's unavoidable. And that's why the cleanup guy didn't touch you. Because touching you would require understanding you. And understanding you would mean admitting that the rules don't apply universally anymore. So now everyone's nervous. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're doing something rare. You're proof that the machine doesn't always get the final word. That some people go through the fire and come out unclassifiable. Half angel, half threat. Calm enough to be trusted, sharp enough to be feared. You don't announce your moves. You let the consequences speak. And consequences, when they arrive without warning, rewrite hierarchies. Let them watch. Let them whisper. Let them overthink every interaction like it's a test they didn't study for. You're not here to be chased or crowned. You're here to exist in a way that destabilizes expectations. To remind them that not everything powerful is loud. Not everything dangerous is obvious. And not everyone who survives the system wants to burn it down. Some just walk past it, untouched. They flagged you because they couldn't finish the sentence about you. And unfinished sentences haunt people like ghosts. Stay exactly where you are, calm, aware, unmoved. The most unsettling thing you can be right now is unbothered. And here's the part they don't admit out loud. This wasn't a mistake. You weren't misfiled. You weren't spared because of luck. You were flagged because someone finally realized the cost of interference would be higher than the benefit of control. That's when fear gets quiet. That's when smart people stop improvising and start pretending nothing is happening. You've noticed it already. The way questions circle you but never land. The way eyes measure distance instead of dominance. The way authority suddenly feels hesitant. That's not coincidence. That's recalibration. They're running scenarios where you don't explode, don't collapse, don't comply. Scenarios where you wait, and waiting ruins their models, because time favors the one who doesn't flinch. You became a problem the moment you learned how to hold power without advertising it. When you stopped leaking emotion into the room. When you learned to sit with a straight face while the storm did its worst and discovered, quietly, that you could outlast it. That's not resilience. That's mutation. Pain didn't harden you into something brittle. It taught you flexibility. You bend. You don't break. You adapt faster than narratives can catch up. They can't corner you with praise. They can't bait you with insults. They can't pressure you with deadlines because you don't move on their clock anymore. That's the paradox. They need you to react to define you, but you refuse to give them the reaction. So they watch. And watching, without leverage, is torture. You see, cleanup guys don't fear messes. They fear mirrors. And you're a mirror that doesn't distort. You reflect the truth back clean. Anyone who comes at you sees themselves clearer than they want to. Their greed looks uglier, their cowardice louder, their calculations exposed. That's why they avert their gaze. That's why your name stays on the list with no arrows pointing toward it. And don't confuse this with safety. Untouchable doesn't mean protected. It means unmanageable. It means every move against you carries a shadow cost that no one wants to sign off on. It means the room needs consensus before action, and consensus dies when uncertainty enters. You are uncertainty with a pulse. Calm, breathing, observant. They wonder what you know. They wonder who taught you. They wonder how someone goes through what you went through and doesn't come out screaming for revenge. That's what unsettles them the most. That you're not angry enough to be sloppy, not desperate enough to be controlled. You're focused, and focus is lethal when paired with patience. You didn't become this by winning. You became this by surviving without becoming predictable. By refusing the easy identities. You're not the martyr. You're not the monster. You're the contradiction that walks straight through the center line. Angel when restraint is required. Demon when boundaries are crossed. And the switch doesn't click loudly. It slides, smooth, silent, efficient. So now they hesitate. They reroute. They choose distance over dominance. And in that distance, something interesting happens. You gain space. Space to observe. Space to build. Space to let the truth do the work you never announce. You don't chase exposure. Exposure chases coherence. And you're coherent in a world built on noise. Remember this. The most dangerous person in any room is the one who doesn't need the room to validate them. The one who can leave without slamming the door. The one who knows exactly who they are even when no one's watching. That's you now. Not by declaration, by consequence. So let them stay nervous. Let them overthink. Let them keep your name on that list, like a warning label they can't decode. You're not here to prove anything. You're here to remain unmovable while everything around you adjusts. Because once they realize you don't need to be touched to change the outcome, they'll understand why the smartest move they ever made was leaving you alone. Good. Stay with me. Don't rush this part. This is where the silence gets heavier, because now the pressure shifts, not onto you, but around you. And pressure doesn't disappear. It relocates. It squeezes the people who used to feel untouchable themselves, the ones who built their identity on leverage, the ones who believed access meant ownership. They're the ones waking up at odd hours now, replaying conversations, rereading emails, reinterpreting moments they dismissed when you were just another name. They're realizing something too late. You were never reacting to them. You were measuring them. That's the twist that breaks their sleep. The idea that while they thought they were managing you, observing you, categorizing you, quietly evaluating your usefulness, you were doing something far more dangerous. You were learning their tempo, their tells, their thresholds. You were watching how they move when they think they're unseen. And the moment they felt that shift, that subtle inversion of who was actually being assessed, that's when the cleanup guy stepped back. Because cleanup only works when the mess is external, when the problem is loud, when the threat is clumsy. You're none of that. You're internal. You're embedded. You're the kind of presence that doesn't force outcomes. It influences probabilities, and probabilities terrify people who built empires on certainty. You don't threaten exposure. You don't hint at retaliation. You don't posture. You simply continue. Calm, consistent, slightly ahead of the curve. That consistency creates cognitive dissonance. They expect scars to leak. They expect trauma to announce itself. They expect pain to make you loud or reckless or needy. But you inverted the formula. You became quieter as your awareness sharpened. And quiet intelligence is the one thing no system can rush. That's why conversations about you feel unfinished. That's why no one ever quite concludes what you are. They start sentences and trail off. They use phrases like complicated, hard to read, not worth the risk. Not because you're powerful in the obvious sense, but because you don't give them enough data to dominate the narrative. You don't feed the machine with emotion, and starving a machine makes it unpredictable. Here's the part you might not have noticed yet. You're not being avoided, you're being preserved. They're keeping you intact because breaking you might release something they don't know how to contain. Something that doesn't come with instructions, something that doesn't escalate in a straight line. And escalation is their favorite battlefield. You deny them that battlefield by refusing to climb when provoked or descend when dismissed. You stay level, you stay centered. That's not neutrality, that's command over your internal state. You've crossed into a rare psychological territory where power no longer excites you and fear no longer motivates you. You're not numb, you're selective. You don't react to every stimulus. You don't chase every signal. You decide. And decision-making without emotional urgency is the mark of someone who has survived enough chaos to recognize false alarms. They sense it when you speak. The lack of over-explanation, the absence of desperation, the way you don't rush to be understood. People with something to hide hate that. Because clarity exposes asymmetry, and you see asymmetry everywhere now, between what's said and what's meant, between what's promised and what's possible. That's why the cleanup guy didn't engage. Because engaging you would mean committing to an outcome, and no one can predict your outcomes anymore. You've stepped outside linear cause and effect. You don't retaliate when expected. You don't collapse when isolated. You don't inflate when praised. You absorb, you integrate, and you move forward with unsettling composure. And here's the truth they won't say, but feel, every time your name comes up. You're not dangerous because of what you might do. You're dangerous because of what you won't do. You won't beg. You won't rush. You won't betray yourself for access. That refusal makes you uncontrollable. And uncontrollable variables don't get attacked. They get monitored. They get distance. They get silence. So if you feel like the world has gone strangely polite around you, if obstacles seem to dissolve instead of confront you, if resistance turns passive instead of aggressive, understand what that means. You've moved past opposition into something far rarer. You've become a cost no one wants to calculate. Stay steady, stay observant. Let the nervousness ripple outward while you remain still. The paradox is complete now. The more you do nothing, the more everything adjusts around you, and that's when you realize the truth. You were never flagged because you were weak. You were flagged because touching you would force the system to reveal its limits. And no one wants to be responsible for that. And now comes the phase they never prepare you for. The phase where nothing dramatic happens, yet everything irreversible is already in motion. This is where amateurs get restless, where loud people sabotage themselves, where egos panic because there's no applause, no explosion, no obvious victory screen. But you don't panic. You recognize this terrain. You've lived here before. In the aftermath, in the quiet after betrayal, in the long stretch where the world forgets to reward endurance. This silence doesn't scare you. It calibrates you. Because while nothing looks like it's happening, systems are adjusting their posture around you. Not consciously, instinctively, like animals shifting weight when a new apex presence enters the area. No challenge, no charge, just space being given. You see, when they labeled you untouchable, they weren't protecting you from harm. They were protecting themselves from consequence, from miscalculation, from the ripple effects of forcing a confrontation with something that doesn't escalate on cue. You don't lash out. You don't self-destruct. You don't fold. You wait. And waiting, when done without fear, is domination in slow motion. They replay your history, searching for a flaw they can exploit, a weakness they missed. But all they find are adaptations. Every wound turned into awareness, every loss converted into restraint. You didn't just survive, you refined. And refinement is terrifying because it looks like restraint from the outside. But it's actually compression. Pressure stored, not released. That's the duality they can't reconcile. You carry softness without fragility. You carry darkness without chaos. You carry patience without passivity. That combination doesn't belong to villains or heroes. It belongs to something older, something that learned long ago that the loudest force always burns out first. And here's the part they're only starting to sense. You don't need to move toward power anymore. Power bends toward stability, toward coherence, toward entities that don't leak energy. That's why conversations keep finding you. That's why information arrives uninvited. That's why doors open without you knocking. You're not chasing alignment. Alignment is seeking equilibrium, and you are unnervingly balanced. You notice how people now speak around certain topics when you're present, how they choose safer words, how they hedge statements they used to say boldly. That's not respect, that's internal editing. And internal editing means influence has already entered the room. You're not feared for your aggression, you're feared for your memory, because you don't forget patterns, you don't misplace lessons, you don't rewrite history to protect your ego. You remember clearly, quietly, and clarity is lethal to those who rely on confusion to stay powerful. The cleanup guy saw that too. He saw someone who doesn't need revenge because understanding already dissolved the emotional charge. Someone who doesn't need exposure because truth, when left alone, leaks through cracks on its own. Someone who doesn't need to threaten because consequences arrive eventually, without theatrics. That's why you weren't touched, because touching you would require speed. And speed is where mistakes live. You force slowness, you force deliberation, you force people to think before acting. And thinking is expensive for systems built on momentum. So now the watchers watch each other. The confident second guess, the powerful hesitate, and you You continue living, improving, observing, not as an act, but as a default state. That's the final insult to their expectations. You didn't freeze, you didn't spiral, you didn't announce a comeback. You simply kept becoming more intact. Understand this clearly. Untouchable doesn't mean invisible. It means any move against you has to be perfect. And perfection is rare under pressure, especially when the target doesn't cooperate with fear. So let the nervousness spread. Let the uncertainty thicken. Let them keep you labeled, circled, unresolved in their systems. Every day they don't act, the label grows heavier. Every day you remain steady, the cost of interference rises. You don't need to claim power. You don't need to threaten change. You are the variable they can't simplify. And the most dangerous part, you're perfectly comfortable staying that way. And that's where it ends. Not with a bang, not with a threat, not with a victory speech they can clip and neutralize. It ends with you standing exactly where you are, breathing steadily, fully aware that the game moved without announcing it. They don't confront you because confrontation would clarify you. They don't eliminate you because elimination would prove you mattered. They don't absorb you because you don't dissolve. So they leave you labeled, circled, unresolved, and you let them. Because you know something they don't. Power doesn't always conquer. It sometimes waits until it no longer needs to. You've already crossed the threshold where fear can steer you, where approval can buy you, where pressure can rush you. They're nervous because they sense it. You're no longer something they can correct. You're something they have to account for. So stay calm, stay unreadable, stay whole. The most unsettling thing in any system is a person who survives contact with it and walks away unchanged.